Who's this?
My name is James. I'm in Southwest Colorado.
James in Southwest Colorado. You got a primary there tomorrow, correct?
We do, yeah.
What's on your mind?
I've been a libertarian for a little bit. And
of course you have been. It's 2:30 on the East Coast. Right. Of course you're a libertarian. We only take libertarian calls in the last 2 minutes of the show.
Oh, nice. Well, I feel very honored then. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I have a problem with a lot of libertarians that call in because
they're not actually libertarians.
Correct. I remember Emma said something pretty funny. She said that's another word that the right has stolen from us, and dude got pretty mad, but she's absolutely right. So I sent an email, and I wanted to talk about property tax a little bit, because I think one of the keys to liberty and to being a libertarian is to make sure that everybody has sovereignty over their own residence, which isn't possible in a rent-heavy society. So the libertarian solution is to eliminate property tax on your residence, on your first home, and then for every residence that you own afterwards, substantially up the property tax that an individual has to pay. And I'm not talking about by 0.5% or anything like that. I'm talking about tax 15% of the property's value for the second home that you own and 25% for the third home, just to lower the incentive for people to consolidate property and just make it easier for everybody else to get in on that.
Okay. I get the part that it makes it more expensive to own the second and third homes, or, in the case of, let's say, a major corporation, hundreds or thousands.
Or churches or something like that. Yeah.
Okay. So you own your own home. There's no property tax.
Correct.
And you want to disincentivize owning second and third homes. So, okay. So let's say that works. Only the super wealthy, the elite can afford it, right? I mean,
you can have that beach house or whatever. Yeah.
Right. So what do you do about the schools that rely on property taxes? And on that end, and then what do you do about, so I don't have a landlord. And so you're saying that the value of those properties are going to plummet dramatically because...
I'm not overly concerned about that because the goal is not to raise property value. It's to provide...
Well, I'm not concerned. I'm not concerned with that either. I'm not concerned with that either.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm happy to have the values of those properties drop. You could also get rid of the 30-year mortgage if you wanted to do that. But where are people supposed to get this money to buy the house anyways? Like, I mean, how cheap is it going to be?
I understand that getting into it would be a process, but I think that
but what's the process?
Sort of an end goal.
Well, I mean, I think we share the end goal. I'm like
for sure, and
I don't necessarily think that people need to own their homes, but that's that would be better than paying rent, sure.
For sure.
But what do you do? Let's just start with the problem of property tax. How would you replace that in terms of like funding for schools and local communities?
I would supplement it from somewhere else. I generally tend to be a socialist, so as well as libertarian. So I'm totally for universal health care and things like that.
So the feds could do an income tax. So if the feds could do the income tax and schools, okay, I'm down with that.
Yeah, if you wanted to add 0.5%, that's fine.
I'd be happy to decouple it from property tax. So, but so why is it important for people to own their homes as opposed to, let's say, I don't know, the state owning it and providing a 99-year lease?
Because I think that, so what would be the terms of the lease? Let's say I wanted to move somewhere else. Would I be breaking the lease, or would that be, I just feel like owning the home provides a little bit more flexibility in terms of individual lifestyle.
I mean, I guess. I mean, you could break the lease with a certain amount of time, I guess. I don't know. I mean, so how are people going to afford these homes that you're talking about?
Well, I mean, I would say that we would have to restructure how we view the working class for sure. People should be compensated more. I think a good fundamental principle for that, and as a YouTube host, a little bit about this. I don't think that anybody should profit off of somebody more than they profit off of themselves. So let's say your YouTube show makes whatever amount of money, you should make the majority of that, regardless of what it is. And I think the same thing could be said for an Amazon factory worker. If Jeff Bezos, if we could create a formula to decide how much he makes off of his employees, if he makes $80 an hour off of his factory workers, then his factory workers should make a minimum of $40.01 per hour.
I understand what you're saying, and I mean, in principle, I'm okay with that. But it just seems weird. I mean, and it just seems weird that you're talking about all this sort of stuff that sort of would really, in many respects, and I think, as far as I can tell, in a positive way, revolutionize the structure of our society, but you focused on just home ownership in a sort of an idiosyncratic plan to increase home ownership, which I think it would increase home ownership to some extent, but... just the conversation starter. I mean, I'm calling into your show. I have to have something to start out with, and that was something that I thought just might get the ball rolling a little bit. I mean, obviously, this is all, I'm coming up with things out of thin air, basically, so it's all up for debate in every If we want to prevent people from having second homes, how about we just outlaw it?
Because I think that when you just straight up outlaw things, you're just creating unnecessary animosity among the people that it can be mitigated in other ways, rather than just straight up outlawing it.
I mean, I'm not clear on the, I think where you're starting from is with all due respect, is I don't know, talking about the left ear of an elephant, or part of the ear of an elephant. I mean, because the elimination of property taxes is a huge thing. To federalize, let's say, the building of roads in certain rural areas and municipal areas, and I'm not talking highways, I'm talking the roads. Federalize education. I mean, let's just start there. And but to have the goal of everybody own their own home, I don't think is possible, because I don't think enough people have enough money to get that home. If you are, and then to say, well, I want everybody to own their own home, so I'm willing to essentially have very, very strict government regulation over property in the form of a business, so that we can regulate pay ratios. I mean, I'm all for that. But you're sort of burying the lead. Do you follow me?
How so?
Well, I think having the government say to Jeff Bezos, we're going to make sure that your payroll is reflective of the productivity of your workers. And then also say simultaneously, we're also going to federalize schools and federalize the municipal building of roads, et cetera, et cetera. Those are much bigger deals than upping the tax on second homes, or basically not allowing landlords to exist, I think is also pretty big. But I mean, but to do it for the goal of people owning their own homes seems, I don't know, just sort of seems a little bit weird. I mean, but I guess, I don't know.
I mean, I just think that's where the day ends, and where it begins. It's where everybody should be most comfortable. It's where everybody should be at peace in their home. I mean, I live in a place in Colorado where there's a ton of rental properties, and it's an extremely dog-friendly town, but 85% of the rental properties aren't dog-friendly. And I understand that if there was a government lease, the government might be more lenient on things like that. But I don't think that, we just live obviously in New York, this as well. We just live in a society where the housing structure that we live by as a society is detrimental to the quality of life for a lot of people in a lot of different ways. So I think that just having the ability to just go home and know that
you can have your dog out there
100% yours is comforting.
Yeah, that's comforting. It just seems like actually there's a lot of people who are like, I would rather rent because I don't want the responsibility of upkeep, but I would rather have an entity that is going to do it. I mean, presumably, right? Like, people are going to be paying mortgage on on these houses. They're going to be paying a fee to live there. And if you want to talk about decommodifying houses, which I think is what you're saying, but trying to sort of like reverse engineering all these different things so that everybody can own their home, I think is assuming that the way that you feel about your home is the way that everybody feels about their home. And B, that seems like a sort of a very subsidiary goal to the ideas of just broadly decommodifying housing, makes sure that everybody can get housing, right? I mean, because presumably if you're worried about people feeling comfortable in their homes, then you want everybody to have a home, right?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. And so I think and that goal would be more important that they owned it, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And that they could be in the home without worrying, without feeling an insecurity about the home. So I don't want to be in a home where I can't afford the mortgage. I want to be in a home where I feel like I'm not going to lose this home. I could lose my job or whatever it is, but I'm not going to lose this home. Or, I don't make the money. My partner makes the money. And in my case, if she passed away, then I wouldn't be able to afford to live in the home. Like, I want security. Like, that to me seems like a goal. And if it turns out getting rid of property tax and decommodifying things that way, as opposed to just saying, like, you can't be a landlord, or maybe like rent control. I mean, I like, there's a lot of ways to get to those sort of top line goals that you're talking about, which I think are admirable goals and ones I would support. But I don't know, the way you're going about it just seems to be a little bit more complicated than it needs to be. And I think, like, home ownership is not, even in the context of of living in a home, sort of, it shouldn't be the primary goal. The primary goal should be living in a place where you feel secure, and is a decent place.
But I would say that there are a lot of people who don't feel secure right now, especially with rent prices going up and wages staying stagnant.
I agree. We should have government building more homes. But I mean, the problem is we have a squeeze on supply that is really a function in many respects of what happened in 2008. Both the lack of building that took place and you could argue, like, the financialization and the sort of uber commodification of housing that took place in its wake, where these massive entities bought up all these foreclosed homes.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I appreciate the call. Call back again, and we'll get into it. But that was a good 15-minute, last-minute phone call. I appreciate it. There's a lot of people who are very upset about it out there. I can assure you of that. The classic take a libertarian in the last moment. And now, folks, I know there's a lot of you going like, he always does this. It is completely by chance. I have no idea I don't even remember what the first three numbers were on that. 907 or wherever he was. Like, I don't know who that is. I have no idea. They just looked at me like 907. It's no specific, libertarian specific area code. All right, I'm going to read 10 of these and get out of here.